If they keep it up, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Chris was just telling me how he felt much more comfortable with my being here.
Do you see me fuck? Cause your ass is mine.
What's on the menu again, friend? Here we go again, folks.
While doing research, I came across a topic, and what if I told you that eating a human brain isn't some isolated act of savagery from one remote tribe, but a practice documented on nearly every continent, across nearly every era of human history. Prehistoric hunter-gatherers did it. Ancient Greek physicians recommended it. Medieval European doctors prescribed it. A sect of Hindu holy men still practices it today. And in one valley in Papua New Guinea in the 20th century, it triggered a disease so horrifying, so scientifically impossible, that the entire field of biology had to be rewritten to explain it. This is the history of eating human brains. And the further back you go, the more it seems human it gets, or that's for one's own interpretations. Chapter 1. The Pare History Visual. Let's go back roughly 700,000 years. In a cave called Atapuerca, in northern Spain, archaeologists made a discovery that forced scientists to completely rethink what early humans were capable of. They found human bones, dozens of them, bearing unmistakable cut marks. Deliberate, precise scraping marks. The same marks left on animal bones when meat is stripped from them. But these weren't animal bones. They were Homo antecessor, an early human species. And the marks were concentrated on the skull. Something had been carefully removed from inside that skull. This isn't a fringe find. Evidence of prehistoric brain consumption has turned up at sites from France to Croatia to Morocco. At one site in Somerset, England, scientists found 15,000-year-old human skulls that had been intentionally shaped into drinking cups, the brain scooped out first. Now, here's the question that matters. Why? Not all prehistoric cannibalism was about survival. Archaeologists distinguish between nutritive cannibalism, eating the dead because you're starving, and ritual cannibalism, eating the dead because of what you believe it gives you. Inquiring minds would want to know. Please put it in the comment sections for the readers and those that are critical thinkers, and we'll give back a thorough response at least. Well, back to the video. And when they look at which parts of the body were consumed, a pattern emerges. The brain, the heart, the liver, the organs associated with thought, courage, and vitality, were treated differently than muscle. Preserved differently, consumed in different contexts. Someone, 700,000 years ago, looked at the mass of tissue that controlled thought and decided they wanted it inside them. Chapter 2. What they believe it could do. Across wildly different cultures, with zero contact with each other, humans landed on remarkably similar beliefs about what consuming the brain could transfer. In ancient Egypt, certain funerary texts describe rituals in which the cognitive power of the deceased, their memory, their wisdom, could be absorbed by consuming the brain and nervous tissue. The brain was seen as the seat of the soul's intelligence. Eat it, and you inherit it? The Aztecs practiced a form of ritual consumption after sacrifice, specifically targeting the brain and organs of warriors, in the belief that the deceased's courage and battle strength would pass to those who consumed them. You weren't eating a person. You were absorbing their accumulated power. In ancient China, medical texts dating back over 2,000 years contain references to human brain matter as a treatment for neurological conditions, the logic being that like cures like. A diseased mind might be healed by a healthy one, consumed. Even in ancient Greece, the physician Galen, whose work dominated medicine for over 1,000 years, wrote about the medicinal properties of various human tissues. His followers in the Roman world pushed further. Questions still remain. Were their logic almost perfectly consistent across all of them, despite the geographic and temporal distance? The brain is where a person lives. consume it, and something of that person comes with it. Chapter 3. European Medicinal Cannibalism. Here's the part of the story that tends to make Western audiences the most uncomfortable, because it hits closest to home. In 15th and 16th century Europe, there was a widely sold, highly sought-after medical product called mumia. It was prescribed by respected physicians for epilepsy, bruising, hemorrhage, nausea, and a long list of other ailments. It was made by grinding up mummified human flesh, including brain tissue, into a fine brown powder, mixed with herbs and oil. You didn't go to a shaman for this. You went to a pharmacist. European executioners made extra income selling the fat and skulls of the freshly hanged. Skull was particularly prized. The powder scraped from inside a human cranium, mixed with chocolate or wine, was a documented remedy for epilepsy well into the 1700s. King Charles II of England reportedly drank a preparation of human skulls. They called it the King's Drops, to improve his cognitive vitality. The king? Drinking brain powder? As medicine? King Charles II? Drinking brain powder? As medicine. This wasn't fringe behavior from the margins of society. This was mainstream European medicine, documented in the same era when Europeans were arriving in the Americas and describing indigenous communities as savages for their ritual practices. The dissonance is almost hard to process. Almost. Chapter 4. The Fore People and the Laughing Death. Now, Papua New Guinea. 1957. I've covered this partially before, but the full context changes it completely. Some of my old videos were respectfully taken down due to musical copyright infringements when I first started making them, and what I thought were educational and thought-provoking. Now I know much better. The Fore people practiced endocannibalism, consuming the bodies of their own dead, not out of malice or hunger, but out of profound respect. Abandoning a body to decompose in the earth was seen as a waste of everything that person had been. The brain was considered a delicacy, reserved for women and children. And then, people started dying. It began with tremors, then uncontrollable laughter, then inability to walk, inability to swallow, and finally, always, death. The Fore called it Kuru, the laughing death, and at its peak, it was killing up to 200 people per year. Whole villages ran out of women. When American virologist D. Carlton Gajdusek arrived and worked out the pattern, the women and children who ate the brain were dying. The men who ate the muscle largely weren't. Scientists called him delusional, because what he was describing required something that science said couldn't exist. A protein that was infectious. No DNA, no RNA, just a misfolded protein, a prion, that entered the brain through consumption of infected neural tissue, and then did something that still feels like it belongs in science fiction. It forced healthy proteins to misfold too. Chain reaction of corruption. Holes formed in the brain tissue, literal, visible holes. The brain turned spongy. It was always fatal. Always. And because the incubation period could be over 20 years, people who had stopped the practice decades earlier were still dying in the 2000s. The last assumed and interestingly highly questionable confirmed Kuru death was in 2009. Gajdusek won the Nobel Prize. And the discovery of prion unlocked our understanding of mad cow disease, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, and fatal familial insomnia, a disease where the same mechanism destroys the part of your brain that lets you sleep. Forever? All of it. Some say it traces back to one valley. One practice. One brain. Makes you wonder why so much medication is taken to not go to sleep. Chapter 5. The Aghori, the ones still doing it. On the banks of the Ganges River, at the cremation ghats of Varanasi, there is a sect of Hindu ascetics called the Aghori who have been documented by journalists, anthropologists, and CNN cameras, consuming the flesh and brain of the human dead. For the Aghori, this isn't transgression. It's transcendence. Their philosophy inverts the entire framework of disgust. To fear the dead, to find the body repulsive, to see death as the end, all of this is ego. All of this is the illusion of the self. By consuming what society says you must not touch, the Aghori claim to dissolve the boundary between the self and everything else. The brain, specifically, represents the seat of consciousness, the last fortress of individual ego. To consume it is to symbolically absorb and then release that ego into something larger. Whether you find that profound or horrifying largely depends on what you brought to this video. What's undeniable is that the Aghori represent an unbroken line from those prehistoric humans in Atapuerca, from the Aztec priests, from the European physicians grinding skull powder into wine. People who looked at the human brain and saw not just tissue, but something worth taking in. Chapter 6. What does this all mean? Modern neuroscience has a word for why the brain holds this particular power in the human imagination across every culture. We are the only species that knows it thinks, that knows something happens in that 1.4 kilogram mass of tissue that is, somehow, us. And for most of human history, before MRI machines and cellular biology, the brain was the deepest, most literal mystery in existence. The skull was a locked box, and humans, across every continent and every century, developed the same answer to what you do with a locked box you can't open. You put it inside you, they say. But Kuru showed us that even with all that knowledge, even in the 20th century, a practice rooted in love and grief, and the most ancient of human impulses, could still carry a biological consequence, so strange it broke every rule we thought we had. The brain remains, even now, the least understood organ in the human body. Maybe that's the scariest part. From a cave in Spain 700,000 years ago, to a European pharmacy in 1650, to a Fore village in 1957, to the banks of the Ganges today, the human brain has always occupied a place unlike any other organ some organizations and people would say. Feared, revered, consumed. If you want more deep dives into the darkest corners of history that most channels won't touch, subscribe. I drop one of these every week. And please leave a comment which part of this surprised you the most, because I genuinely want to know.
Stop calling me a rage baiter.
First of all, I ain't even going to dignify the accusations with a response, because that's so ridiculous.
I bet a lot of people saying, he ain't lying.